the issue here is that you've got somebody who was trained to be a witness, and the people around her are driven nuts by the fact that she can't get exactly what they want her to get. But as one of the guys says, it turns out she was pretty accurate. It's like she was very accurate. It comes down to the difference of the shape in the brake light. That's it. That's and the decal, basically the badge on the car. Those are the two things that make it different. So, and it's all of this is seen under stress. She's firing her gun. An officer has been killed or shot. How much do we expect the person to really retain? This sort of insane amount. And it's interesting too, especially here, to have these sort of condescending Texans. Yeah. Sort of looking down at this female officer and saying, well, we would have done better than that. If you want to have a look at how fast things can come apart in terms of what the true story is, The Thin Blue Line is your film. An early Errol Morris film. He's going to go on to make things like The Fog of War, Standard Operating Procedure, Unknown Knowns. Some amazing films. Okay, so the essence of the story, however, may be there, and that's sort of the point that you get from this piece of The Thin Blue Line, which is that there's something in there. We just don't know exactly what. It's sort of being like handed a box full of, say, 8 or 10 puzzle pieces, and the person says, 6 of these pieces belong in the puzzle. And you're like, okay, well, which ones? It's like, we don't know. Okay, we know there are at least 6. So we have to start testing them somehow. I've got a confession to make, Saunders said. Last night, man, I had to make up a few things on 73. Oh, no kidding. So probably when most of us tell a story, we engage in a little, turn up the heat on some parts, turn down the heat on other parts we don't want to really talk about. They're boring, we think, or maybe they're not about us, or maybe they make us look bad, or who knows why we don't. We just leave them out. It's not about somebody we like, or it makes a friend of ours look bad. Who knows why? Right, but we leave all kinds of things out and we add all kinds of things. And as you tell a story, the story, as you tell it and tell it again and tell it again, the story is going to change. It wasn't a question of deceit, just the opposite, says O'Brien. This is on page 85. He wanted to heat up the truth, to make it burn so hot that you would feel exactly what he felt. For Rat Kiley, I think facts were formed by sensation, not the other way around. And when you listen to one of his stories, you'd find yourself performing rapid calculations in your head, subtracting superlatives, figuring out the square root of an absolute, and then multiplying it by maybe, on page 85. This is a lovely passage, right, where, subtracting superlatives. So I was like, it was an amazing. It's like, maybe it wasn't so amazing. Figuring out the square root of the absolute. It's like, okay, he's saying it's this much, but it probably was that much, and multiplying by maybe. It's like, and this, which is for sure, probably is not for sure. So this same language I talked about in the first day, when we talked about O'Brien, the language that buffers reality and softens it, right, also causes a barrier between you and the abrupt event. Yeah, it's useful to us as human beings, but it also builds up a wall between us and the thing. If we can we see it, without this barrier? Basically, can we process it that way? And the argument from really most, I suppose, studies of human behavior and communication is no. Because we are signifying systems, because what humans do is represent things to themselves in abstract symbols in our heads, which in one case may be a written language, or it might be a visual language, or it might be music. It doesn't matter what kind of representation it is. As soon as it goes into representation, it shifts, and that's the end of that. Unless we're representing things perfectly as they were experienced. which, how are we going to do that? And then how are we going to remember it? So what kind of story does O'Brien approve of? Because you can say, well, okay, well, so why am I reading this, Tim? Like, if this guy is just lying to me, and everybody's lying to me, like, why am I reading anything? It's like, well, this is why a lot of people really like documentaries, because they're like, aha, here, I'm closer to the truth. It's like, sure, okay, that's what you might feel. A documentary is fundamentally just another structure of a story where the person is proclaiming out loud. They're not knowingly using a fictional device. Okay. How much do you trust them? How much do you know them? Do you know this filmmaker? You know, what did they leave out? What did they put in? How long did it take? Where did the money come from? You know, who are they, basically? Yeah, I don't know. So on page 77, O'Brien gives us an example of something which occurs, and he is trying to pass that example on to us, presumably without any mediation, which of course is impossible, but he's trying to do his best for us to presumably purely get it, right? He says, he's talking about combat. He says, it's not pretty exactly. It's astonishing. It fills the eye. It commands you. You hate it, yes, but your eyes do not. Any battle or bombing raid or artillery barrage has the aesthetic purity of absolute moral indifference, a powerful, implacable beauty, and a true war story will tell the truth about this, although the truth is ugly. This is on page 77. So, okay, so what are we to make of this? It's like, here is O'Brien presumably trying to get across to us, using language in a very particular and poetic, commanding sort of way, which is very didactic. You know, it's very directive prose. It's like this, you know, you will see this and you will see that, using the second person. You see, as if we're somehow going to follow that. But that's the idea, right? That's the concept. Okay.